Hey guys, Dr. Bernard Fragomeni with the Humanbeing to Wellbeing Companies. Today's podcast, we have Erin Wilbourne out of Twin Falls, Idaho. I have to look because I keep trying to confuse the state with another place in another town. And boy, I am challenged geographically, so it's best I look down and make sure I'm not going to put her in a different location. So there we go, Erin. We've got you in the right city and in the right state, at least this time.
Good. People
That's
can find me.
Yeah, people, we've had to do like 100 takes. I'm not the best guy on the camera. So listen, here's what we're going to be doing today on today's podcast. And what we've been doing is we're going through and featuring some of our new coaches that we brought into our company. We're looking to grow to over 100 coaches in the next year with people nationwide. Erin's bringing an unbelievable background with her, and she's got a phenomenal story that we're going to talk about and share with you folks out there. So Erin, I'm really happy we're able to take this time today to chat about kind of where you're coming from, where you're going to, and what you're doing to add to your skill set of how you can help people heal, both from a spiritual standpoint as well as from a physical standpoint, depending upon what modality they decide to work with you. So for folks that are up in the Twin Falls, Idaho area, I want to emphasize again, it's Twin Falls, Idaho. You can look up Erin, and there's other things that'll come out when we start talking about her background and what she brings to bear with the company, of other things that she can do besides coaching and nutritional stuff with us. So welcome, Erin. I'm glad to have you on. I'm looking forward to having fun chatting with you a little bit about your background and what you can do to help people out.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Erin is a person that has come into this from a different perspective. Is when she was a kid, we all have these things we want to do when we're kids, which is kind of fun to hear people tell stories about. She not only wanted to be a nurse, which eventually she became a psychiatric nurse and is still a practicing nurse, but blends in other modalities that we'll talk about as well. But she wanted to be a nurse because she wanted to go. Where did you want to go? Tell people where you wanted to go.
I wanted to go to Romania to work in the orphanages because it was a communist country and you could only get in if you were a nurse or a teacher. So that was my goal and means to an end to get there.
So to me, I will just say, whenever I've asked anyone what did you want to be when you were a kid, that's the first time I've ever heard that one. Because it wasn't just a nurse. You hear nurse or fireman or police or doctor or whatever, right? But you don't hear, because I want to go to Romania to the orphanages. So I think that's pretty awesome. And it's one of the most unique ones that I've ever heard. So I think it's pretty neat. You never made it to Romania.
Did not.
You did do some traveling that we're going to come back and talk about a little bit, as far as what you did when you were a little bit younger with Bible college and going to Australia and Scotland and Portugal. We'll come back and talk about that a little bit. So you spent a bunch of years. You eventually became a nurse. You thought you might wanted to do the law school thing. I'm glad you didn't do that. I think the world is better served with you doing what you're doing, quite frankly, right now. We don't need any more attorneys. I mean, I don't think we need any more of them. They all end up becoming politicians anyway, and then God knows what happens from there. We've lived through some interesting stuff this year, right? So
yep.
We don't need any more of those people. We need healers.
We do.
We need people using the healers, which is what we're going to talk about. So you were in the psychiatric side of nursing. You ended up dealing with some pretty tough people. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So my first job, I was assigned to the schizophrenic and long-term criminally insane unit. So I got to work with people in those categories. And eventually over time, I was tired of being a drug pusher. I was tired of just watching, the things that they were struggling with just be treated with medications that would then, those symptoms would get treated with another medication. And pretty much they were doped up all the time.
Yeah. What's I think it just shows your heart, how much empathy you have for people, because you're in an environment where people could certainly judge, right? What some of these people have been labeled at, as far from a society standpoint, and what they've been through, and just say, hey, let's toss these people away. Your heart went to a different place with it, and it drove you to want to be, some people get burnt out in those instances, right? They just decide, this isn't for me. I don't know how I ended up in this place, and they quit and they're done. You went a different path. You became so disillusioned with it, you decided to get into alternative healing, right? That was like 15 years ago.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that I started my own business about 10 years ago, but it was about 15 that I turned from it and got into recovery coaching and working as a peer support specialist with those harder cases that people tend to call outcasts.
Yeah.
And trying to teach them that that their value as a person and that they could be healed and meet their goals as well. So that kind of started me on the path for that.
Yeah. I mean, you've kind of gotten that I would call resonating lesson in a couple different things in your life, because one, you went through some things when you were a little bit younger, but when I was intimating about the fact that you spent time in Australia and Scotland and Portugal, you were doing that to serve others because you'd attended Bible college and you went and traveled kind of almost like missionary work with with that. So you were doing that. You also knew what it was like to maybe have somebody put you in a box of, hey, you're looking like you've developed into something that we think might need to be institutionalized, because you went through that at a pretty young age. So let's talk about that. Take your time, kind of go through and explain how that unfolded with different things of depression and anxiety and OCD and some of the things you went through. So let's go to your younger years a little bit as a background to what may have led you, even if it wasn't consciously, into practicing that type of nursing before you got into the alternative healing space. But share with the folks listening a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no. So coming from the background of, as a younger person in my teen years, I went through rape. I was dealing with anorexia. I was dealing with suicidality, cutting, which then was diagnosed of having bipolar type 2 and one of the worst cases of obsessive compulsive disorder that my psychiatrist had ever seen. So I was extremely labeled, extremely boxed. It was one of those things, especially getting to nursing school, that you don't ever mention that. I made that mistake once, saying that, hey, I can probably help these people because I get it from where they're coming from. And you're immediately ousted. And so that was a huge thing for me to be able to help people that had been labeled, for them to realize that they're a human being just like any of us, and they deserve to meet their goals and be healed, whatever healing, that hits them from there, what they need.
Yeah. And you knew where they were coming from, because at one point, one of the doctors treating you, not realizing what's going on. I want to talk about that in a minute. But at one point, with the doctors not realizing what was going on and not getting to kind of the functional medicine or the root cause of what was actually going on, they were ready to tell you that you needed to be almost institutionalized, right? I mean, you kind of actually experienced that.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. So there was a lot of underlying conditions, which is why I'm really huge on, and with what you do as well, is finding the root cause and the underlying condition of something. Because I was looked at and said, I'm depressed, I have bipolar. And so they were actually threatening to lock me up.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to a point with that, almost a parallel point that you got to with caring for some of those folks that were locked up, literally locked up in psychiatric nursing side of things, is where you just said, is enough's enough. I need to look into what's going on with myself. And you were able to get some help, and tell everybody what we found out that we know is actually, unfortunately, way more common, maybe not specifically to uranium poisoning, but toxicity from the environment, things crossing the blood-brain barrier, causing diagnoses that really, although they might be textbook maybe correct, no one's ever looked at what's really going on. They're just thinking like, this is a person that has this, they're so far gone, there's nothing we can do, we've tried everything, but they've never dug in and really found out what's wrong. So you happen to live near, I don't remember if it was a plant or what, a factory, right?
Yeah, it was an engineering laboratory.
Right. You found out what, eventually, with somebody helping you?
I found out that uranium had been, depleted uranium had leaked into our garden pretty much from the plant. And so it took over 10 years later before I found out that I was poisoned with uranium and arsenic. And that was, the root of a lot of my issues, but I had been misdiagnosed for so long. And I had, treated myself naturally. I finally went off of all the medications they were putting me on and treated myself naturally with herbs and supplements, but I'd been misdiagnosed. And so that was the key to me getting my full health and realizing, oh, okay, now I know why. So now I can actually treat it.
Yeah. I mean, it's missed often. I mean, think about it. So what ages were you when you were probably getting exposed at that location? I don't know if I've asked you.
Yeah, no, it would have been between the ages of about 15 and 18 that I was exposed.
So I want people out there to think about this, so there's lessons to be learned. And part of the reason that we want to share these stories of the phenomenal folks that we're bringing in to become coaches with us is whether I say you can't make up or teach a story of someone's life, and we want people to be able to get something. And what I want people to be able to get something out of is the fact that there can be kids out there right now that parents or maybe a doctor is diagnosing them with having schizophrenia or anxiety or depressive disorder or somewhere on the spectrum, or I don't care what label you want to put on it. And they just say, oh, well, that's the diagnosis. The doctors know best, and this has got to be what it is. We know now a lot more from a functional medicine standpoint that when you start to see people have these issues at earlier years, we can go back to environmental influences that could happen as far back as in utero with things. And not to mention in formative years when a young woman is starting to go through growth spurt, starting to go through hormonal dysregulation going on because you've got menses coming on and different things happening. So they can be extremely sensitized to these things. And, up into a point not too many years ago, we didn't really believe that many things could even cross the blood-brain barrier, let alone have neurotoxicities. So it's extremely important for people to realize that the world that we live in today, Erin does a ton of work with people on opening up detox pathways through nutritional means. She does other things with foot detoxification, which, some people argue there's controversy. We've seen proof and we know, and Erin's seen a lot of results with people to know, certainly in the population she's serving, that it works and that she gets good results. The bottom line is, I want people to understand is that when you start seeing kids and they're growing up and you start to see behaviors, we have an onslaught of all sorts of things that are being pinned on and pigeonholing and putting these kids into diagnostic silos where they're looking at legacy medications for the rest of their lives. And it could just be that they need to have themselves detoxed and cleaned up. You need to remove whatever the toxins are that they're getting exposed to. And the sooner you can catch these things, the better, but it's never too late. So if you're someone that's out there that's listening and you've got a kid that sounds like you're hearing some of the things of what Erin was subjected to and went through, pay attention to what's going on. Get with somebody that understands this stuff. Seek out a professional that has knowledge. If you're in Twin Falls, reach out to Erin. She's been through it, so she understands what it can do and what it can impact. And the good thing is there's this resiliency story we hear from a lot of the people that we're attracted to having come to work for our story, is that they sought their own path and sought to figure out how to heal themselves. And in doing so, got very focused. I hear this from many, many functional medicine doctors that they went through a lot of stuff. I've got my story of things I went through with a cancer scare, with a lot of other issues. But that can help us with empathy, but can also help us understand and kind of look at things differently, because the truth of what might be causing something might not be just you have a genetic predisposition. This is what you've got. You've got something else that's going on that has caused you to have this issue, and we can't fix you. Whether that's somebody like Erin, I want people to get this story very solidly, or even people that were thrown out of society and casted out of society as you can never be helped with the folks that you were dealing with their issues. So I just hope that people hear that story. Let's talk a little bit. So it took a while for you to become healthier. And then you decided 10 years ago, after you made the move away from the psychiatric nursing, I know it wasn't called the Healing Center at first, and I'm blanking on the name. What was the name of your
Positive vibes.
That's right. I should
Yep.
know it. It's in your email. I mean, I only
It is my email. Yep.
yeah, no. So, but so you went down the path of massage, and a lot of folks, for folks that are listening, a lot of the coaches that we have, and a lot of the people that are coaching out there, they eventually go through some sort of program like ours or some other formal program where they become certified. But a lot of them go from, being a nurse, some other practitioner, to do a massage. You do the detoxing thing that I already mentioned, and you've been giving people and working with people on the nutritional side, and you still do a work with a lot of people in recovery. Almost every modality you practice, you work with people in recovery. Let's talk a little bit. There's a thing that you do that I find very fascinating. That it's actually very simple, but a lot of people have not heard of it. I know when I consider going to osteopathic school that there's osteopathic adjustments. People might think of those as like chiropractic adjustments. They do tend to pay a little bit more attention into alignment and the musculature, how that can be kind of manipulated as well, not just a hard crack chiropractic adjustment. Let's talk about Onsen. First, explain to people maybe what that word means translated in English, and then talk a little bit about what that really entails, like what that would look like if you went into somebody came in and had a session with you. You tend to blend things with your hands-on to both energy, massage, Onsen, etc. But let's talk about that, because I think it's probably one that people haven't heard about as much.
Yeah, so onsen, the meaning of onsen, it's a Japanese word that means at rest. And it's a technique, an osteopathic alignment technique that you locate the vertebrae or the joint or whatever that is out of balance. And it's a way to, rather than cracking it back in like a traditional chiropractor would do, it's getting the muscle itself to activate. And then that muscle will communicate with the brain to let go, so that you have a lot of success with it where you don't have the repeat visits like you see in chiropractic, where you can adjust, a vertebrae in their neck, get their muscle to activate. And then, your brain just, oh, okay, I can go ahead and let go of this. And I don't need to keep knocking the joints and the bones out of place.
Right. So it's a form of osteopathic adjustment. So people have maybe heard about that stuff. To be very honest, I mean, a lot of osteopathic physicians don't even do that stuff. They kind of are more traditional medicine doctors. But it's something that you can do. Now, when you go in to adjust somebody, is it a pressure point release? Is it an energy release? Is it a stretching? So if you were doing that on someone where they hold a lot of tension of things that come up through the neck in particular, what would it feel like to them? I know it's not as harsh as a snapping adjustment by any means, but what would it feel like to them?
It should never hurt. And so I always instruct people, like, if this hurts, if I am turning your head too far and you're starting to feel pain, then I'm doing it wrong and I need to readjust. So today I just adjusted someone's AA that was out. It was causing a headache and an allergic reaction. And so all I do is turn her head and ask her to put some pressure on my hand, which activates the muscle right around that joint. And then after doing that a few times, it just snapped itself back into place. So it's just pressure. Yeah.
It's awesome. And I love that you brought up a specific example around headaches, because as you know, and people that have ever met me know, one of my pet peeves is people reaching for over-the-counter pain meds. It causes catastrophic, and I don't use that word lightly, injury intracellularly, specifically to the mitochondria. It causes destructive things to happen, whether it's ibuprofen or Advil or whatever. Each one of them does either all three, or does it a combination of getting after gut issues and causing disruption in the gut microbiome. So if you've got issues like this, I would just put out to people, don't look at alternative modalities as something like that's all woo-woo. There's a sound basis behind these types of things, especially for very specific applications. When you start talking about people reaching for all these types of things for headaches, there's a lot of things that somebody with the healing modalities that Erin has, besides the coaching stuff she can do on the nutrition and supplementation side, and a lot of the other areas that we work in, where those types of things can be taken care of. And oftentimes you don't need to reach for something every day, as she just mentioned. You can go in, somebody can kind of get you back in alignment, It can be alignment energy wise. It can be alignment almost adjustment wise in this instance, what we're talking about. And it can take care of some of those very things at the causal level, like at the functional level, as we like to talk about it, so that you can have relief and you can stop poisoning your body, and you're poisoning the mitochondria in your cell and poisoning your cells and poisoning your gut. So if you've not given something like that a shot before, and you're someone that suffers that's listening to this, whether you're in Twin Falls, at proximal, or within a relatively semi-decent drive to reach out to Erin, find somebody else that's a practitioner, or reach out to Erin and find out what she can do, even through a telehealth type of call with you, because there's a lot that you can do with folks, even from a remote standpoint. So I would just implore people. This is something that's been doing this for 10 years. So we're pretty choosy with who we're bringing on board, and we're real happy to have the skill set that Erin brings to us. And it's awesome for her people up there that she's getting to add us on as a bolt-on, and learning a lot of what we do from a health coaching standpoint, and then tapping into all the different resources that we have at different parts of our team. Let's talk a little bit about other things that you do with your modality. I like that you don't just completely concentrate. If somebody comes in and they're, the typical person comes in to you and says, I don't feel well, I'm achy, I'm sore, I don't have energy. I like that you don't just have one mode that you operate in. A lot of people just do sports massage therapy, or they just do one thing. You truly put that person on the table, and if you're going to be doing some sort of a therapy that you're putting hands on them, you kind of feel what it is you do. So you want to talk about, you can talk about somebody you worked with today, yesterday, or something that pops out in your mind, as far as maybe how that felt to them and looked to you, as far as different things you might have done with something. So you want to talk about maybe a particular case that pops to front of mind for you?
Yeah. I did a massage on a lady. She was super, super stressed and tight in her shoulder areas. And she's like, I just need to relax. But she was open to whatever happened. And so I started with just a relaxing massage and a deep tissue into the parts that were hurting. I ended up doing Onsen on her neck and adjusting her neck, and then doing some energy healing as well. And then during that, she told me later, she flashed to seeing a red trike from when she was 4 years old that was attached to some trauma from her childhood that she'd never thought of. A lot of the emotions are stored in the neck. So from that point, then I would speak to her about whether she needed either body memory release from trauma that had happened to her body, or some soul fragment healing for some trauma that she'd witnessed as a child that had caused a part of her soul to just kind of never really grow along with her. Mm-hmm. And then we would work with integration back into her body with that trauma, so that trauma just kind of blends back in.
Yeah.
And she gets to be whole again.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's interesting. You hear case after case of people talking that do the modalities. It's certainly way different than the stuff I do, but you hear people talk about traumas being stored in different spots other than just inside of our mind. You can't really point to a thought or even a memory, for that matter, inside someone's head. Even a neurosurgeon with the brain cracked open, they might be able to see certain control centers, right, where things are, even though those can move if there's been traumatic brain injury. But no one's ever really been able to point to a memory or point to a thought. We know that memories consolidate when we sleep, and we assume that they're in certain areas, and there's certainly there's tons of proof that that's where they are. But it's amazing time after time as you hear about people having something happen to them. It could be an adjustment. It could be during a massage. It could be something else that happens where a certain body part or region of the body actually experiences an injury, and a memory comes back, and people are like, where did that come from? So these are things that are I think beyond interesting for the average person that's interested in any of this stuff, and it's neat how it can come out from a therapeutic angle that you take. So you'll be able to go back with this woman and specifically revisit on another visit what exactly happened, and get this memory that's been stored not just somewhere from a neuronal perspective, but somewhere else in the body, and get it to release. And
Yep.
that can then cause her to have kind of both, from an energy standpoint and from a perspective of overall feeling of well-being, not have that thing hanging on her anymore.
Yep.
Both
Yeah.
figuratively and literally, right? From that
Mm-hmm.
standpoint. So
Yeah.
I find it kind of neat. What do you think is your favorite place you got to travel when you went to Bible college before the nursing stuff? And I know we're bouncing around for folks, but it's just kind of how we like to do these things. What was your favorite place to go between and visit, and whether it's the culture or the people or the weather or just how things kind of spoke to you? What was your favorite place to out of all those places you spent quite a bit of time traveling?
My favorite would have been Scotland, just because that's my Highland Scottish blood talking, and so
Yeah.
I felt at home there. Love the culture. Australia probably was the most fun to explore. New foods, completely different culture, completely different people. So that was just fun to just live in a totally different environment for about a year.
Yeah. I know I've asked you this before. You ate some weird stuff in some places. I didn't ask you if you ate like haggis in Scotland or not, so I don't know if you
I
did.
did.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
everyone feels they have to do it once, and they're just like, that was the most awful thing I've ever eaten. But you also ate some other awful stuff. In particular, I know that, look, culturally, some people here get kind of torqued off about this stuff. But I mean, I know you had some kangaroo, and I know you had what was the other thing you ate?
Emu.
Yep, emu.
Emu.
Some
Yeah.
people, I don't think people think emus are just big chickens, so I don't think they get as upset with that. And some people have eaten ostrich. I know there's some fine dining restaurants back when I used to eat meat, would serve ostrich. It's close enough to emu, I guess. Unless you're looking at that commercial for Liberty Mutual, I guess it gets a little bit different. But you ate a Vegemite sandwich, or you at least ate Vegemite, and you said it was completely delicious, right?
So it was completely disgusting. Yeah, it was very foul.
Yeah. But the haggis,
Yeah.
the Scottish stuff can be almost as bad, right? Probably they might be.
You know what? I would take haggis over Vegemite.
Saying a lot if anybody's ever eaten that stuff, because it's generally pretty awful. It feels like you're eating stale or moldy fat that's rancid. It's pretty decent, and it has an awful texture on top of that.
Yeah.
Knowing Vegemite, well, I just know for this, I used to be a person that would try everything. And Vegemite is made from what? Like, do you even know what it's made from?
It's yeast. It's made from yeast.
Yeah, so it is vegan. So technically, I should be a guy that would be like, yeah, give me a Vegemite sandwich. I heard about it in a song a million years ago. I think I should
Yep.
probably have that. But I actually think I wouldn't try it now, knowing that, because if it's worse than that, if it's worse than a bone with a bunch of rancid fat on it and sinew and stuff, I don't think I want that, even though it's technically plant based. So I don't think I'll go for that. What do you think has been, your passion that wants you to continue expanding your skill set? That keeps giving you a drive. Is it trying to find people that have been through what you've been through? Is it trying to find those lost souls that have maybe been forgotten by society? Or is it just in general trying to give people an alternative way, truly, to heal themselves and take responsibility for what they're going through? Like, what do you think really gives you the passion or drive or your why for what you're doing, what you're doing?
Yeah. I would say my biggest passion is seeing someone that's seeking the truth and wanting complete healing, and that's willing to take, whatever steps those are, whether it's, mind, body, soul, spirit steps to completely heal. That excites me when the light turns on and people are like, oh my gosh, this is what's going on, and this is how I can do better, and that are just accepting and open to complete healing. And then they're able to meet their own goals. And that's super exciting to watch people meet their goals and find healing and truth along the way.
Yeah. Well, I know you're passionate about that for sure, which is what attracted us to you from that standpoint. And you're only going to gain more from some of the stuff that some of the training and programs that we're putting you through to add on. So the folks, whether it's somebody you work with remotely, that can be anywhere in the world for that matter, or someone that you work with locally, they're going to benefit a lot from the extra things that you're learning. I mean, I know I learned from you with the stuff that you're expert in, and I just know that I'm excited to see you continue growing and being able to offer people even more help. We've got some great clients that I'm working on with you that are going through a path of discovery and understanding of just what it takes to make their body take care of itself, and that they can be an active participant in that and not feel like they're a victim. So it's really important for people to hear that and know that there's hope. If there's anything that we try to transmute as far as a message out to people, it's that, if you've been trying to get well for a long period of time, don't feel that the only answer is the same answer you've been getting maybe from the 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th or 9th or 10th doctor. And don't accept, if your gut is telling you that something's not right here, that I'm not really getting to the bottom of what's been causing me, whatever it is you're going through, know that there's other people you can go to that have dedicated their lives, like Erin, which is why we've got her as part of our team, that can dig through whatever it is that's going on with you, that have also had some traditional training, that know enough to know when they're in their scope of practice and can refer people back to the right people, but that can also teach you the things that you can be doing to help yourself heal and heal you as a complete person, or as what we say, a well-being. So not just have well-being. So I love your passion, and I love the direction that you've gone in your life. I think it's a great lesson for people to understand that when you're being told that this is who you are and this is going to define you and this is the way the rest of your life's going to be, that you don't have to accept that, and that you can take both responsibility and the direction over and become your best friend, and you're the person that loves yourself the most in providing a program that can overall take care of you, as opposed to having somebody farming that idea out to someone else. Anything that you'd like to add, Erin? I mean, I love our conversation direction it's gone. It's helped, I think, people get an idea of your passion, your heart, your soul, your education, your background that you can do to help people. Is there anything you wanted to maybe throw out there that you'd like people to hear from you about, as far as what you can do for them to help, or what they can do for themselves?
Yeah. I think just one other fun little tidbit that people sometimes don't often think about it, that I've been passionately involved in for years and years, is doing dance and acting therapy. So that's been huge for me, to get people that maybe can express themselves verbally to be able to express it physically, or vice versa. If they can't tell you what's wrong, be able to express that in a more of a thespian type approach. So I've been doing a lot of that. I think acting and dance, besides healing, are up there with my 3 top passions. And so being able to incorporate that into a healing modality has been huge. Yeah.
You did something, I meant to bring that up, so I kind of forgot, but you did something just recently with the addiction recovery group that you help out with, right? Where you were doing some dance therapy stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a really cool thing as well. And I can just tell you that any way that people can move and express themselves, if they aren't very good at doing it with words, God knows I struggle with the words sometimes myself. So, but people need to know that there's all these different things out there. I think that's a very good point to bring that up, is that there's a lot of different ways you can go about working on yourself and expressing yourself and letting out anger, or letting out fear, or letting out passion, or letting out whatever it is that you feel like you're not able to control, and go from just being an impulse driven type of a being to being somebody that can actually see something, not have to react immediately to it, and then learn how to kind of bring that out so that you can express yourself better. And that methodology is very important, and for folks like that have been suffering, let's say, with addiction, because what they can realize is that they can just let stuff out and not have to try to cover it up and ameliorate it and hide it by self-medicating. That they can find ways to let those things out and not be fearful of somebody judging them with it, because it's what leads people down the path a lot of times to addiction. And it doesn't matter what substance it is, if it's hurting themselves, or if it's just really a downward spiral of treating themselves poorly, or obviously abusing things like alcohol and drugs, and even food for that matter. I would say that, people can learn a lot from being able to express themselves, and know that that can have a lot of healing associated with it, and put a circuit breaker in front of a behavior response pattern that they've maybe been doing to themselves for a long period of time. So people can kind of pass by those types of things and kind of say, nah, it sounds like something that's really, kind of out there, dance therapy, acting therapy. What is that? But when you try to connect the dots for people, they go, oh, I can see how that might work. That could be something that could be healing to people, and teach them to manage the way that they're feeling, as opposed to just saying, this is how I feel. I don't have control of it. This is just what I do. They can start to understand that they can take responsibility and bring back an owning of how they react to situations, and know that it's just okay. It's okay to be, Ellen DeGeneres does her dance party. I don't know if she does it anymore, but it's the whole thing of that is just to kind of let go, be goofy, and share being a little kind of off with people. Because it's certainly better to share being a little off with people than to go out to, happy hour every day and share too many drinks, right? So it's good, especially in addiction recovery. I know those types of things can be very impactful. So it's awesome that you shared that. Well, listen, I know that we're real lucky to have you. We're excited for your future. We know it's going to be even better. It was pretty damn good to begin with anyway, with the direction that your trajectory of life that you're on. So we're excited that you're part of our trajectory here. And for those of you listening, like I said, we'll put Erin's contact information to either follow her on social media, reach out to her virtually if you can't reach out to her in person. Let's all pray for a better day when we're not living through this awful COVID thing. And we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. And we will see you all on the other side. Go out and make this great day. And hopefully this stuff resonated with you. And be good, be kind, love yourself, love other people. And let's make this a little bit of a better place today, if you can find it in your heart and soul to do so. Thank you. This has been the Humanbeing to Wellbeing show with Dr. Bernard J. Fragomeni. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms so you can stay in touch and in tune with everything that we're bringing you around health style, transformation, natural medicine, functional nutrition, nutritional psychology, and the whole gamut that's going to make you live forever as a well-being. Go out and make this day the best day you've ever had, because it's the one that we've got.